Never heard him once even single shouting, and so always smiling, always helpful.
The whole peaceful nature of this area has gone.
We have chilling new details tonight about a quadruple murder in a Markham home. Minhas Zaman has been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. Police have not identified the victims, but neighbors say he lived in the home with his mother, father, sister, and grandmother. He made his first court appearance in the killings today, and a warning, the story we are about to show you does contain graphic content. Angelina King joins us from outside the Markham home where the victims were found. And Angelina, police say this investigation there is going to take some time.
Yes, they did. They've been here since yesterday afternoon, and police are still on scene. You can see that the house is still taped off behind me. The forensic team has been going in and out of the house since we've been here from not too long ago now, combing through the house, searching for evidence. Now, there's one big piece of potential evidence that police have not confirmed, a confession and photos of the crime scene posted online to an online gaming community. Then one of those people sent the messages and photos to CBC News. The photos are extremely graphic. They show the victims after they were killed, as well as 2 weapons. Now, police have not confirmed if the photos and the messages posted online came from the same person that they have arrested and charged, but the man behind the online account writes about being depressed and says that he is a coward for killing his family and not himself. Late Saturday night, chilling messages from a man named Minhas to members of an online gaming community. He said he had been lying to his family for years. In messages obtained by CBC News, the man says he had dropped out of university. He told his parents he was at class, but instead was hanging out at the mall and the gym. He wrote, "I did this because I don't want my parents to feel the shame of having a son like me." He said he told his family his graduation was on Sunday and killed them the night before. "I couldn't have delayed it any longer," he wrote. "I wanted them to die so that they didn't suffer knowing how much of a pathetic subhuman I was. It's all very selfish." CBC News has not independently verified that the person sending these messages is 23-year-old Minhas Zaman, now charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. But a woman who rented a basement apartment in the home for 5 years says this photo from his gaming profile is a match. Amira Riaz says Zaman was quiet and always helpful around the house.
I never heard him once even single shouting, and so always smiling, always helpful. Her mother is bringing grocery. He's taking out the grocery from car.
She says Zaman lived with his parents, sister, and grandmother. Police were called to their home in Markham yesterday afternoon. They had been told several people were possibly hurt inside. When they got there, Zaman was at the front door. They arrested him. Inside of the house, police found 4 bodies, 3 women and 1 man.
This scene is going to be held for quite some time, as there's a lot of work for our forensic identification to be doing inside the residence here.
Zaman briefly appeared in court today wearing glasses, a black t-shirt, and he gave his name in a soft voice. He's scheduled back in court on Friday. So neighbors here say that they're extremely shocked that police are in their otherwise peaceful community, especially for something like a quadruple murder. Police say that they understand the community is concerned, but want them to know that they are not searching for any other suspects, and so there is no risk to public safety.
Thank you, Angelina.
We are not yet in a position to confirm that these are the wanted suspects.
The manhunt in Manitoba continues. RCMP are refocusing their search for 2 BC murder suspects after a reported sighting of the fugitives. Details coming up. After months of protests and outrage, the Ford government is pivoting away from its controversial autism funding model, creating what they are calling a more needs-based program. Ali Shihsan joins us live from Queen's Park with the details. So, Ali, this is a real change, of course.
Well, Dwight, think about it this way. The last time we were on the lawn of Queen's Park talking about autism funding, it was filled with protesting parents. Well, today, this was the Conservative government saying, "We heard you."
The parents.
Today wasn't just an announcement. It was a mea culpa.
Right. We are certainly sorry for the anxiety that this has caused parents across Ontario. We are committed, though, as a group, to making sure that we get this program right.
The Minister of Children, Community and Social Services says they're committed to cleaning up the mess made of the autism portfolio.
It's clear to me that we didn't get the redesign right the first time.
Under that redesign, parents would receive a fixed amount of money determined by their income and their child's age. Unpopular, to say the least.
And it's the Toy Story 4.
It meant that 7-year-old Nicholas Walsh would have gotten about $5,000 a year.
It's awful. We have him in therapy. We're paying right now almost anywhere between $1,100 to $1,300 a month. So $5,000 is not really going to last us very long. And then again, it comes back to us paying it out of pocket. But not all families are like that.
My son is not in a place where he's able to care for himself. It puts pressure on me and my husband.
Paying out of pocket is not an option for Josie Chavez and her son.
We all want my son Adam to be independent and being able to have a job for himself, to be able to be successful, and however that looks like for him.
Right now, her son Adam gets $70,000 a year for therapy, as mandated under the previous Liberal framework. And that's going to get extended by 6 months to tide parents like her over until the Conservatives come up with their new needs-based funding plan announced today.
We are now finally pointed back in the right direction.
The minister took some ownership today.
The president of the Ontario Autism Coalition was at the presser to reiterate again that autism is not a one-size-fits-all issue. She says with many families paying for therapy out of pocket or languishing on wait lists, the new program can't kick in soon enough.
I'd like it to be in place yesterday, and I think most families feel that way too.
For me, the fight still continues. It continues until there's actual needs-based therapy, because right now, all there is just a lot of talk. So enough talk, enough of these government shenanigans. Let's move forward.
So this is the Ontario government saying they're going to go back to the drawing board. They hope to roll out a new autism funding plan by April 2020. It's safe to say that these parents will be holding them to it. I'll send it back to you, Dwight.
Thank you, Ali. An intense manhunt for 2 fugitives from BC has moved to a second community in northern Manitoba after RCMP received a credible tip yesterday afternoon.
Officers searched the York Landing area throughout the night and continue their efforts today. The Royal Canadian Air Force is also assisting today with the search. Our officers are on the ground, have not made contact with the individuals, and so we are not yet in a position to confirm that these are the wanted suspects.
York Landing is about 90 kilometers from Gillam, Manitoba, the scene of the last confirmed sighting. Briar Schmagelski and Cam McLeod are suspects in the killings of 3 people in northern BC more than a week ago. Angela Johnston has more now from the latest search zone.
We know that RCMP are still working here in York Landing, trying to find the individuals who match the description of Cam McLeod and Briar Schmagelski. Now, when we arrived in York Landing last night, we got a sense of some of the police presence that is at work here. We saw a drone working. We've been told there was a K9 unit and a helicopter also aiding in the search. But you know, one thing that we did notice was that the roads were extremely quiet. There were some community patrols going around, people watching out for each other, but people in the community have been told to stay indoors, keep their doors locked, keep their windows locked. So it really has been almost eerily quiet. Now, we did also speak with the man who called in this possible sighting of the suspects.
It didn't click in at first. It was kind of like, it took a few moments till like we got on the road, and then we made the decision to like we both seen the same thing, and so we better go take a look. And then about 5 minutes after that, it's like could be possibly the suspects from BC.
He told us that he was doing a patrol and he went around the area of the community dump, and that's when he saw 2 people on foot. And this was very unusual, he said, because most people don't go there without a car because there's bears that go to the dump. So he called it in right away. He said shortly after that, RCMP poured into this area, and this is where the search continues today. Angela Johnston, CBC News, York Landing.
The time I was getting stabbed, I thought I was being punched. So I didn't realize until about 30 seconds later when I backed up and my chest was soaking wet with blood. So I'd realized at that point, and he was still standing about 10 feet away with just a big smile on his face.
Coming up, we speak with the man who was stabbed at the Beaches Jazz Festival, how and why the attack happened, and how he's recovering. We'll have that for you coming up at 6:30.
When it's too hot, but it's great for me, and I think my generation. It's good to sitting under the tree at the Ash beaches or some other places.
Lots and lots of water, especially if you're in the sun. Of course, sun protection, and I don't know, the less clothing is better.
It's really nice and sunny outside, and everybody gets to play.
10 months out of the whole year, it's winter, so don't complain and just enjoy the heat and drink lots of water. Cheers.
Cheers back at you on this sunny day after a sweltering weekend. Toronto is under a heat warning yet again, but there's some good news on the horizon. The humid and hot weather is expected to let up starting tomorrow. As we see, lots of people are out there enjoying it, so still no complaints, Scarlett.
No, I'd just like to have that ice cream to go along with the hot weather.
Little rum and raisin, my favorite flavor. How about yours?
Ooh. You know, I have many that I like, but I like the mint chocolate chip quite a bit.
I can handle that too.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we're going to talk about the weather now and stop talking about ice cream.
Okay, but now I'm hungry. Yeah, here's the thing. How do you keep that ice cream cone from not melting when we're in the heat like this? And I don't want to downplay it. We are still in the heat warning, okay? But I expect that to be lifted for Tuesday. As Dwight was just saying, we're getting into a kind of transition period. But when you have the transition of air masses, you tend to get into some active weather. And that is what we're seeing. Two very different air masses out ahead of this next system in the cold front. Areas you see in yellow, severe thunders to watch, meaning it's ripe for the development of severe storms. More importantly are the areas in red in a severe thunderstorm warning, meaning there are severe thunderstorms occurring. So the radar shows you, look at all these lightning strikes. So numerous lightning strikes associated with these storms that have developed. Some very, very heavy downpours in here as well. Some torrential rains essentially coming in, but some of the wind gusts too. The downdrafts, you can get into some of these winds 80, 90, even 100 kilometers an hour. And you see all of this tracking in our direction. So let's just kind of go in. I'm taking the lightning off, go in for a closer look. When you start to get into some of these pinks that we're seeing on the radar, we watch these echoes very, very carefully in terms of the shape of them, but we're at least seeing some of that rain being very heavy. So some areas seeing 50 millimeters as they pass through. At least they're making haste, moving quickly, so that where you get into the heavy downpour, it tends to then move on out again. But we have this unsettled weather tonight into tomorrow morning. It gets a little better tomorrow afternoon. Now, in terms of what we're seeing with the heat, that's still there, no question about it. Feeling like 30. Well, earlier today, feeling like 38. The models want to break this up a little bit, so that severe line not necessarily coming into the city. I want you to know that there's that risk, and we'll be watching that for you. It kind of breaks up and splits to the north and to the south. This is how it looks overnight tonight then. 20 degrees for the overnight lows, still very mild for overnight lows, but tomorrow a little bit better, 27, feeling mid-30s. It cools off even more from there. I'll talk about that coming up.
I hope it doesn't get too cool because it is Carnival weekend. We're going to talk about that.
We're going to build again towards the weekend. Don't worry about it, Dwight.
Thank you, Colette.
You got it.
A Toronto family is upset after they were ordered to remove the artificial grass in front of their home. They received a violation notice after a neighbor complained. As Kelda Ewan reports, they want the bylaws to change.
Sangeeta Gounder had artificial grass installed on her entire front lawn 3 years ago.
Because it was getting very difficult to keep a green, weed-free lawn. I absolutely adore it. The kids play on it, the dog plays on it.
Last year, she even received a beautiful front yard garden award from the city. But this May, she received something else, this violation notice, after someone complained about her artificial turf. The city only investigates when a call is made to 311. Gounder was shocked.
I've never actually encountered anybody who didn't like it.
According to a city zoning bylaw, a minimum of 75% of the front yard must be soft landscaping. Synthetic grass, that's considered hard landscaping. Gounder says there's 2 feet of drainage under her turf, but city official Mark Straga says that may not be good enough.
Artificial turf is not considered to be free draining.
The city doesn't receive that many complaints about artificial turfs like this. So far this year, they received 5. In 2018, they received 5 in total. And the year before, in 2017, they received just 2 complaints. And the city also doesn't always follow up. Karen Stintz is a former city councillor who used to have an artificial turf.
And it should be widely used and accepted.
This is her on her front lawn in 2015, shortly before she received a city order to remove her fake grass. Stintz never did, and the city never contacted her again. But when she sold her house, the purchasers noticed the bylaw infraction.
So I had to pay the new owners the equivalent of removing the turf and replacing it with sod, which they took the money, but never did.
Stintz tried to have the bylaw change when she was a city councillor, but was unsuccessful.
And so I do know that it continues to be widely utilized, even across local BIAs across the city that put artificial grass in the city boulevard. So it's unclear why the city is choosing to go after homeowners.
As for Gounder, she initially planned on having her case heard at a fee of about $1,800. But with her entire front yard being artificial turf, she has a high likelihood of losing her case.
If it's at 28%, 30%, we'll use our own discretion on how we want to proceed.
So later this summer, Gounder will be busy tearing out her turf.
Although it breaks my heart to do it.
Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
I get a lawnmower too now. Remember, if you have a story you would like us to look into, we would love to hear from you. Send us an email at torontotips@cbc.ca. The Punjabi Golfers Association hosted its yearly golf tournament today, hoping to encourage more diversity in the sport while also giving back to those in need.
I think everyone enjoys this game. This is a summer game, everyone loves to be outside, so this is more for networking, right?
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. This event's a great event. Every year they have it in the summer, and it's a lot of fun. So we're going to just try and go out there, have some fun, and shoot a good score. It's great to be involved in the Indian community, and it's nice to give back.
It's fun to see the community get together and play golf.
My game's going pretty well. Yeah. I hit a couple of greens, but I missed a lot of shots too.
Playing very well, just the pressure of the tournament, trying to win, trying to get to your head.
Trying to win against adults.
Normally golf isn't as good as basketball, but like the Punjabi Cup is.
I like that line. Now, the Royal Punjabi Cup has become the largest Punjabi tournament in Ontario. The tournament hopes to popularize golf with the Punjabi community and help attract new players to the sport, especially women and young people. Proceeds from the tournament are donated to a local charity, the Siva Food Bank.
You'll notice all these tiles on the back of his shell, but the 13 larger tiles signify each new moon.
It's going to be a permanent fixture at Nathan Phillips Square, marking a dark time in Canadian history. After the break, we show you how part of the residential school's monument came together.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Nathan Phillips Square has transformed into an Indigenous cultural space to honor residential school survivors and their families. Today and tomorrow, there will be performances and teachings for hoop dancing, drumming, and throat singing. Also, there to check out Indigenous food, arts and crafts, and lots of stuff for sale. There's also this turtle sculpture called the Restoration of Identity. It is a replica of what will soon be a permanent installation in the square, and we had the chance to speak to the man behind it about what it means.
My name is Solomon King, and I'm from Neashingami. As a child, I was always interested in art and drawing and sculpture and nature. So at one point it was just a natural progression to get into the arts. So what I ended up doing was going to trade school as a brick and stonemason. And then when I turned 28, I actually reapplied, I was accepted, and I actually dropped everything and I went to art school full time. So I did 3 years at OCAD, and I did my thesis year in Florence. So the turtle, you'll notice all these tiles on the back of its shell. There's 13 larger ones, and there's 28 smaller ones. But the 13 larger tiles signify each new moon. So for example, strawberry moon. And the smaller tiles signify days. So our calendar is based on the lunar calendar, which is 28 days and 13 moons. Our creation story involves the turtle and the muskrat. So the basic storyline of the turtle and the muskrat was there was no land in the beginning. So they sent down all these different animals to try and get some dirt from the bottom of the water. And none of those animals could really do it. So what ended up happening is the muskrat, even though he was the smallest, he was the one that was successful. He went down to the bottom of the water, and for a long time he didn't come up. And then when he did finally come up, he floated to the top. And all the other animals, they were sad because, you know, he couldn't actually do what they couldn't do either. But when they opened up his little hand, they found a little bit of dirt from the bottom of the water. And that's what was put on the back of the turtle shell, which actually today is Turtle Island, which is North America. So the turtle in this sculpture, it signifies the overcoming, it signifies the strength as it climbs over that boulder, and it has a really good grasp on the boulder. It's showing how strong and set its footings are, that it's actually has a foundation for itself, but it's also looking up, and it's looking towards the future. It's looking towards taking its place once again. It's looking towards the strength and the fortitude. So all these things where I wanted to embody in this whole idea of the residential school legacy project, and how it's the next step and how we're finally taking our own place in larger society. In the end, you know, I want people to be able to look and actually take a real moment to stop and breathe and just get a sense of, you know, what we as Native people have gone through, and to kind of get a real understanding of, you know, this is what we've been through, and this is how we're getting over it, this is how we're struggling, and this is how we're going to overcome it. And to really feel that, and to feel like, hey, you know what? We're all in this together.
And I said, leave me alone. And I turned to walk away, and he just started stabbing me in my stomach. I guess he had already had the knife out.
The Beaches Jazz Festival ended in a violent and random attack for one man who lives in the neighborhood. I'm Talia Ricci, and coming up, we hear from the 27-year-old victim who says his injuries from this stabbing are so severe, he won't be able to work for a few weeks.
3 people have been stabbed after what police are calling a road rage incident. It happened early this morning near King and Dufferin. Investigators say 2 vehicles were westbound on King when their occupants got into an altercation. 2 men got out of one of the cars and 3 men out of the other. They got into a fight, and that's when the first 2 men stabbed the occupants of the other car. The suspects got back into their silver Honda Civic and took off. One victim was taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries. A man who was stabbed during the first night of the Beaches Jazz Festival is speaking out tonight. 27-year-old Dylan Khan was released from hospital on the weekend and says he feels lucky to be alive. Talia Ritchie now with more on the random attack.
That was the one close to the heart.
Just missing it by 2 millimeters. Dylan Khan says at one point he didn't think he was going to make it after a young man at the Beaches Jazz Festival randomly attacked him.
At one point when I was in the ambulance, I thought I was going to die. I've never felt pain like that before, and they couldn't stop the bleeding, so I was quite worried, and I was also worried for my puppy.
Khan says the suspect was asking him about his 8-week-old foster puppy when he suddenly became agitated.
I said, "Leave me alone," and I turned to walk away, and he just started stabbing me in my stomach. I guess he had already had the knife out. The whole time I was getting stabbed, I thought I was being punched. So I didn't realize until about 30 seconds later when I backed up to go, because I had to drop the puppy, to go grab the puppy. And my chest was soaking wet with blood. And he was still standing about 10 feet away with just a big smile on his face.
This is the intersection where it happened. Police say they did speak to several witnesses in the area, but they are still searching for the suspect. And in the meantime, the community has come together to try to help Dylan while he's off work.
For as long as he has to recover for, that's out of his own pocket.
Khan has his own business and will be off work for weeks. A GoFundMe page was started by beach residents. One boy was even selling lemonade for him over the weekend. Many in the area are familiar with Khan because he's a social guy, known to offer free relationship advice on the boardwalk and offer a helping hand to his neighbors.
He did provide help to a lot of people, women who need curtains hung here and there, or just little knick-knack type things that some people didn't have the ability to do.
Khan says he's touched by everyone who's reaching out and relieved the internal bleeding has stopped. But still, he can't quite sleep easy.
Definitely going to be looking over my shoulder until this guy's caught.
Talia Ritchie, CBC News, Toronto.
The provincial government making a $4.5 million investment in Variety Village today to help people with disabilities stay active through sports and recreation.
This grant reinforces our government and your government's commitment to support a sports system that provides activities for athletes of all ages and abilities, to foster self-esteem, but I think more importantly to promote equality and inclusion.
This announcement will help make sure that we're here for the next 30 years to serve the community, the families, children with disability, and all those who rely on variety programming.
$2.5 million of that funding will go to repairing facilities at Variety Village, while the rest will go towards creating recreational and competitive sport programs. Some of that programming will include introducing children with disabilities to parasports through education and outreach. Variety Village has provided programming for people of all abilities since it first opened way back in 1949. Canada's chief electoral officer says it wouldn't be advisable to change the federal election date, despite the fact that October 21st coincides with a Jewish holiday. Stéphane Perrault's recommendation to keep the date as is comes after an Orthodox Jewish candidate running for the Conservatives in Toronto and an Orthodox Jewish political activist asked that the date be moved to October 28th. They argued Elections Canada did not properly consider their rights under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Last week, a federal court ordered Perrault to review his decision. All right, Colette, we talked about the heat, we talked about the humidity. Now, is the heat going to hang around and the humidity going to go away a little bit? What's happening?
Well, let me talk about that, and I'll walk you right through it, right? So what's going to be happening is the humidity and even the heat, both coming down a little bit, and then they're going to start to go up towards the long weekend. Wouldn't that be when we'd want them to? In the meantime, because we're kind of shifting out the air masses, so this very hot, humid one leaving another cooler, somewhat drier one, at least with lower dew points, less moisture content, is kind of moving in. There's a battle zone in between, and that's where we get into this unsettled weather. We've got the stormy conditions and some watches and warnings, which I'll get into here in just a moment. Change in the pattern, though, going from hot to warm conditions and not as humid, at least by midweek. We'll notice it a bit tomorrow. You'll notice it more so Wednesday, Thursday. It starts to come up as we get towards the end of the week. But we're still into this heat warning. As I say, I think Environment Canada is going to drop this for Tuesday quite likely, just because we're seeing things that's kind of a transition day. But the watch areas are the areas in yellow. The red is where we actually have warnings because there are some cells, some thunderstorm cells that are severe. And we're looking at some very strong winds with these, 80, 90, 100 kilometers an hour, but some very heavy downpours. And look at this with the lightning strikes. Numerous lightning strikes as well all along this line. Now it is tracking towards the east, so coming closer towards the GTA into the city, but it's also going to break up a little bit and weaken somewhat as we lose some of the daytime heating. So because of that, it's not looking quite as dire for us closer to the lower Great Lakes, but you have to be very careful in these warning areas because we are, of course, talking about some of these storms that could develop some tornadic activity when you have severe cells like this. But watch what happens. This is essentially the models picking up that line, just kind of breaks it apart, pushes some to the north, some to the south. So I'm not saying we won't see some wet conditions and times some heavy rains coming through in the overnight towards tomorrow morning for the city and elsewhere, but I'm just saying it's probably not going to be quite as intense. Keeping an eye on things. So Wednesday, still a little bit of instability, a few little very isolated showers. Mostly I'm putting Wednesday in as a dry day for us. But overnight tonight, scattered showers and storms. The low still running about 5 degrees above seasonal. Tomorrow, closer to seasonal for our temperatures, not quite as humid. And then it really changes into Wednesday. So there's that day where still a little humidity, but you're going to feel that it's a different air mass that's in place. And looking good at this point, all the way tracking through towards that holiday weekend, right?
Thank you, Colette.
You got it.
The latest mass shooting in the U.S. has left 3 people dead, including 2 children.
After a few seconds, there was so many shots, and I saw people falling down.
Pandemonium, people were running out screaming and yelling, and I just told the family, let's get in the car and go.
Social media users posted videos of panicked crowds fleeing the Gilroy Garlic Festival last night. Gilroy is a small city about half-hour southeast of San Jose. A 13-year-old girl and man in his 60s are dead. The youngest victim is 6-year-old Stephen Romero. He was there with his mother and grandmother, who were also shot but are expected to survive. Romero's father spoke to the media shortly after learning what happened.
I lost my son. There's nothing I really can do besides try to be with him until I could put him in his resting spot. I don't know what to say. My son had his whole life to live, and he was only 6.
The adult victim was not in his 60s. He was a man in his 20s. 12 people were injured in the shooting. The gunman has been identified as a 19-year-old from Gilroy. He was shot and killed by police. Donald Trump has put plenty of strong words about Baltimore on his Twitter feed in the last few days, including a description of it as a very dangerous and filthy place. Critics are angry but not surprised by Trump's choice of words, and the U.S. president isn't changing his tone or his tune. Lindsay Duncombe explains.
Over the weekend, the president called the city of Baltimore a disgusting rat and rodent-infested mess where no human being would want to live. He was insulting an influential black congressman who represents the city. People who live here see those tweets as racist.
We already know he's a man of prejudice. You know, we know that. You know what I'm saying? And in my opinion, he supposed to have been out of office, man.
Maryland's Republican Governor Larry Hogan called the comments outrageous and inappropriate. And civil rights activist Al Sharpton held a news conference in the city.
But he has a particular venom for blacks and people of color. He doesn't refer to any of his other opponents or critics as infested.
On Twitter, the president called Sharpton a con man and a troublemaker, saying he hates whites and cops. Trump's strategy here, to the degree there is one, could be to provoke racial debate in a way that stirs up his base supporters, much like he did in 2016. It could also be a distraction from pressures on his presidency. This former top Republican has a different suggestion.
Folks want to talk to you, so just show up. Put the tweet down, brother, and show up. That's all you have to do. It's not complicated.
The president was asked this morning if he would consider a visit to Baltimore, which is less than an hour's drive from Washington, D.C. The president didn't answer. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Washington.
And while on the attack, U.S. President Donald Trump today signed into law a bill helping victims of the 9/11 attacks. It ensures that a special compensation fund will never run out of money, and as Ellen Morrow tells us, that extension is desperately needed.
President Trump signed the bill at a ceremony attended by 9/11 first responders and their families.
You have gone far beyond your duty to us, and today we strive to fulfill our sacred duty to you. We love you, we honor you, and we thank you. God bless you all.
The bill makes the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund permanent. The fund provides financial assistance to first responders and others who worked around Ground Zero and the Pentagon who've been diagnosed with 9/11 related illnesses. Before this bill, the fund was running out of money. That's because, according to the World Trade Center Health Program, approximately 93,000 people have been diagnosed with 9/11 related illnesses, including cancer and respiratory diseases. Some 11,000 first responders have been diagnosed with a 9/11 related cancer specifically, and 200 firefighters are thought to have died from 9/11 related illnesses since that day. Illness is fueled by the toxic brew of carcinogens on the ground and in the air after the World Trade Center and part of the Pentagon collapsed. It was the first day on the job for former FDNY firefighter Rob Serra.
Our work is done. We could all take a deep breath and a sigh of relief. And at least for this week, enjoy it, right? Enjoy our lives. But unfortunately, we're still going to get sick. We still have people to take care of. I'd like to say I'm going to celebrate, but there's really nothing to celebrate. You know, this fight never should have been fought. It should have been taken care of 15, 18 years ago.
The fight to get this bill passed was a long one. First responders, like Rob Serra, traveled to Washington, D.C. dozens of times lobbying lawmakers. Some Republicans were concerned about the cost of making the program permanent. Advocates say that's necessary because more people will get sick in the future. One of the loudest voices of support was former late-night host Jon Stewart.
Don't be nuts here. Like, this is necessary, it is urgent, and it is morally right.
But while today is a victory for the first responders and their families, it's still a tough road ahead as they continue to feel the effects of that awful day. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
As we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. The TSX was down by over 38 points. The Dow Jones was up by 28, and the Canadian dollar traded for an average of just under 76 cents US. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Officials in Afghanistan now say at least 20 people were killed in an attack on a political candidate's office. The attack happened in Kabul at the headquarters of a vice presidential candidate yesterday. It started with a suicide car bombing and went on for hours as gunmen battled security forces. About 50 people were wounded. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack. Yesterday was the first day of the Afghan presidential campaign. A vote is scheduled for the end of September. The Chinese government is speaking out for the first time on the protests in Hong Kong, which have been escalating over the past 8 weekends. As Sasha Petrusik explains, Beijing is accusing Western countries of fanning the flames of dissent.
China's message today was tough, but it was measured, clearly calculated not to add fuel to the fire, not to provoke the protesters any more than necessary. But obviously, Beijing is not happy with what's going on, very frustrated, especially with the latest confrontations that we've seen over the past weekend, the running battles, the loads and loads of tear gas, the protesters who seem to also be getting more frustrated and more angry and putting up roadblocks, setting fires, doing some things that are obviously a greater challenge to the police. Now, Beijing is calling all of this horrendous. They're saying that the more radical protesters are conducting evil and criminal actions, and they say that they should be held to account, especially if they're doing things that are unlawful. And as far as Beijing is concerned, even disobeying the police and holding protests when they shouldn't be, that's also unlawful. And one of the things that Beijing also had to say is that it is very critical of Western powers, who it accuses of really fueling all of these protests, of organizing them, helping fund them, especially the United States. And it is saying that this is a way for the West to get at China and to undermine it from within. One of the things that it also is clearly signaling, though, is that it is prepared to let the government in Hong Kong and the police there handle this matter, that it is not intending to send in troops. At least that seems to be the intention right now. It had a brief reference that there is a legal way that they could send in troops, that the troops which are stationed in Hong Kong at the moment could be employed to help the police, but it's saying that's not on the cards right now. At least those are the signals that it is sending. For now, it seems to be content to let the Hong Kong government and the police handle things and really take the heat. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Beijing.
Bow down! Bow down to Booga, your Fortnite World Champion!
The first ever Fortnite World Cup Championship has been held and crowned. There's the champion, and with it, the biggest cash haul in esports history. Just how much? Let's just say you're maybe not yelling at your kid to stop playing the game right away. Stay tuned. We have more coming up. It is one of the most popular video games in history, and now it has made a few young people very, very rich, including a Canadian. Stephanie Skenderis is here with more on the Fortnite World Cup. First, I guess we've got to talk about these big winners.
Okay, so you mentioned very rich. Do you want to know how rich?
Yes, I do.
$3 million US.
From playing a video game.
From playing a video game.
What did we do wrong,
That
Stephanie?
is how much the solo champion of the Fortnite World Cup took home. I'm talking about 16-year-old Kyle Giersdorf of Pottsgrove, Pennsylvania, or as he's known to his fans and fellow players, Booga. That's the name that he competes under.
Okay.
So he faced some stiff competition here. Around 40 million players competed just for the chance to play in the finals of the Fortnite World Cup. That competition was eventually narrowed down to 100 players from countries all over the world, people between the ages of 13 and 24, including a 17-year-old Canadian named Hayden Kruger. He's from Calgary, but he now lives in the States. He came in third in the duo competition, meaning he'll split about $2 million with his partner. Now, we asked Hayden Kruger what it takes to get so good at Fortnite, what his life is like. He said he trains a lot and he follows a really regimented schedule, although it's pretty different from one that you might be used to. Have a listen.
I wake up at like 1 to 3 p.m. and then I'll play until like 3 a.m. into the night. So it's like the same hours, if not more. I play 8 to 12 hours a day of this game. And yeah, it's pretty scheduled for me, especially like having a schedule is really good for success.
Schedule's pretty good for success, but he's waking up at 1 or 3 p.m. But he says his family is totally supportive. He says they're used to this because his older brother is also a competitive gamer. He's also switched to an online school. That or homeschooling is something many of these professional players have to do.
That's what I was going to ask you. How does he go to school with those hours? All right.
Yes.
This game only came out 2 years ago. Give us some context just about how huge and popular it's become. I know my 12-year-old plays.
Yeah, so you heard about the hours that go into this, but these players have agents. They sign autographs.
Wow.
They fill stadiums. The stadium that the Fortnite World Cup was held in, it's the same stadium that the U.S. Open is held in. And they filled it. And just to put that into perspective, the winner, the solo champion of that competition, he took home more money than Novak Djokovic took home from Wimbledon this year.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So there are concerns, of course, from some parents. Some worried about the violence in the game, the number of hours these kids are putting in. And of course, not everyone is going to make it to this level. They could be putting in hours for just to play the video game. Some parents, though, totally on board with it, being really supportive of their kids, just like one mom we talked to. Have a listen to that.
We're from Niagara Falls, New York, so we drove 8 hours here just to come here so that they could see the World Cup. I honestly have no idea what this is all about, but I did it for the kids.
Now, that same mom told us that she doesn't even want to know how much money she has spent on Fortnite, because even though the game is free, all of the add-ons, they're the things that cost money. And even though this game is still bringing in a lot of revenue, it's still really popular, some of the latest data shows that maybe people are starting to lose interest 2 years on. But hey, it's still a really big deal, and even if this one goes away, who's to say another game won't
for
take
the
its
World
place?
Cup, and you know what? They did have us running around doing Pokemon Go, so
Exactly.
something else will come along. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Time to show us your GTA. This is a good one. The winner of this one, we call it this one the Parks edition of CBC Your GTA, on the shoreline with the dogs, skipping some rocks, thanks to Wendy Stebbing at Lakeside Park in Mississauga for this one. Remember, you can get your photos to us by posting them on Twitter or Instagram with the hashtag CBC Your GTA, and we will air some of them on the show. A Brampton boy put his money where his mouth is when it comes to his basketball skills. You know, we're ball fans here. So he bet his grandfather $20 on a free throw, but it didn't go as planned for the confident 10-year-old.
One shot.
Oh! Let's see how Grandpa does. All right. I think it's the step there for Grandpa. The video was posted by Brampton City Councillor Gurpreet Singh Dillon. His son was initially very confident in his basketball skills, but now he's out $20. The video has since gone viral on social media. Although the 10-year-old didn't win the bet, he learned a lesson. Maybe he should have thought twice before underestimating Grandpa.
Grandpa's got game.
Did you see that stroke of
Yeah,
Grandpa? I like the little step-in
and I
shot.
hope he took that money.
I hope he did too. He'll get it back for your birthday, young man. All right, so what do we have for coming up for tomorrow?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, things will be changing tomorrow, and by tomorrow afternoon, quite a bit better. Just a few isolated storms left. But tonight, some active weather certainly around the GTA, and we'll have some heavier downpours. So that risk there through the overnight hours, a low of 20. Then tomorrow, again, improving later in the day. I know that icon with the rain and the thunderstorms, it looks very nasty, but it's more early in the day, and then it does get a little better. 27. Still feeling mid-30s, Dwight, but it's really a transition day. It's getting cooler than what it's been, and even more so as we get into midweek.
And is it still that localized areas? Because I looked yesterday, it looked like it was raining somewhere, but it wasn't raining where I was.
I know. It's, you know, I was spending some time with some farmers on the weekend, and some telling me, bring me more rain, Colette.
Others saying?
And others are like, what are you talking about? We've had rain. It's so highly localized. It is. It's almost a shame you can't spread it around a little more.
So we need you to keep watching it for us. That's it for our show tonight. Thank you for joining us. Mike Wise has your next local news tonight at 11.